Hello, friends, and welcome into NBA Now. I am your host, Tom Downey. We will talk about the NBA players who are at least considering not returning to the association once games and practice and all that kick back up later in June and July. But first, there are some NBA offseason rumors to discuss. We'll begin with Bradley Beal and a potential trade from Shams, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. NBA teams want to trade for Bradley Beal. In other news, I want to win the lottery because I want that, and so does every NBA team wanting Bradley Beal. That's not really much of a surprise there. Teams remain interested. The Wizards want to keep their young star. I don't think they're going to trade him. They kind of got through the roughest part, or maybe it would have made the most sense to trade Bradley Beal. They, in theory, are going to get John Wall back soon. Beal continues to be awesome at basketball. It's no surprise that these are the three teams per Shams that are interested in landing Bradley Beal. There's the Miami Heat, the LA Lakers, and the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans, I think, would be a fantastic fit for him, but so would the Heat and the Lakers. And this shouldn't be a surprise. NBA teams would love to get a complimentary superstar who can shoot from three. That player fits in like every single offensive system that exists right now in the NBA. So will the Wizards trade Bradley Beal? Type Y for yes or type N for no. At this point, I don't think they're going to. Of course, if you had asked this a year ago, which many of you did, I would have said, yeah, I think Beal ends up getting shipped away. I would have done that if I were the Wizards. So far, they haven't done it. And at this point, probably makes the most sense to hold on to him and try and win with him, and assuming John Wall gets back healthy. Let's move now to Giannis, who also every NBA team wants. None of that Warriors talk that continues to float out there, which we've discussed before as well. But again, per Shams, interesting note here, the Miami Heat have, quote, made it known they want to land Victor Oladipo and Giannis in NBA free agency or via trade, potentially. Both of those players will be free agents in 2021. Not a surprise the Heat are aiming high. They always do that in free agency and trades and player acquisition. And historically, has worked out pretty well for them. They have a better track record of actually landing those guys, fair to say, the New York Knicks. I'm not convinced, we'll begin with Giannis here. I'm not convinced Giannis leaves. I know it's Milwaukee and it's not a major, franchise. It's not a major market. But if the Bucks keep winning, if they can make it around at the championship this year, I'm inclined to think that Giannis ends up sticking around and doesn't end up leaving the Bucks, although I know that speculation isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. Oladipo, meanwhile, well, he's coming off the injury. Maybe that could lower his price, but before he got hurt, he was playing at a very, very high level. It's easy to see why the Heat would want to acquire those players because they're really, really good. As for Giannis, and I want you guys to cast your votes on this one, do you think he ends up leaving the Bucks? A for yes, B for Bucks, for no. I'll make this the pinned comment on today's video, so if you get the ad break here on YouTube, I want you guys to scroll on down there and cast your votes. A for yes and B for no. As promised now, some discussion on the players potentially not returning, some players potentially not returning. A lot to break down here, so we'll spend some time on it. Dwight Howard was one of those on that giant players call that encouraged players to not return to the NBA on the grounds it would be a distraction from the major movements going on right now across the United States. Now, not everyone agreed with Howard, but there is some sentiment behind him here. I would love nothing more than to win my very first NBA championship, but the unity of my people would be an even bigger championship. That's just too beautiful to pass up. This is part of Dwight Howard's very lengthy quote. The other part here, the less distractions, meaning players in the NBA returning, the more we can put into action rediscovering ourselves. Nations come out of families. Black/African American is not a nation or a nationality. It's time our families become their own nations. No basketball till we get things resolved. And I do understand the sentiment behind Dwight Howard's comments there. There were other players on the call, some of whom pushed different points and concerns. Chris Paul, of course, head of the NBA PR, at least the player side of it. He was on the call. Kevin Durant, too, because it was kind of led by Kyrie Irving, which is a whole different discussion we're not going to get into today. Carmelo Anthony brought it up. He encouraged donations from players. CJ McCollum expressed some financial concerns going forward. And then Donovan Mitchell expressed some injury concerns. More on that here coming up. Now, we'll dive down on some of those who disagreed with Dwight Howard, but how upset would you be at players who, in theory, would sit out? Rate this for me on a scale of 1 to 10. I understand where Dwight Howard's coming from, but I venture to say that most of you would instead agree with one LeBron James. Here's what LeBron had to say. Because of everything that's going on, people are finally starting to listen to us. We feel like we're finally getting a foot in the door. How long is up to us? We don't know. But we feel like we're getting some ears and attention, and this is the time for us to finally make a difference. LeBron's saying here that you can both play basketball and, of course, be an activist. And meanwhile, Austin Rivers also approached it from more of a financial side. Us coming back would put money in all of our pockets. With this money, you could help out even more people and continue to give, more importantly, your time and energy to the Black Lives Matter movement, which I'm 100% on board with, because change needs to happen and injustice has been going on too long. I'm a little bit more inclined to agree with Austin Rivers and agree with LeBron James. I get where Dwight Howard's coming from, but I do think at some point you run the risk of losing out and losing some of your target audience in terms of the activism if you don't end up playing basketball. People will care a lot more about what current Laker Dwight Howard has to say than what former Laker Dwight Howard has to say. Now, in this whole, guys, here as the NBA gets ready to ramp back up, if we're able to go to NBA games in the near future, or whenever we're able to go, we're probably going to have to wear masks, or at least we are going to be heavily encouraged to do so. You can get NBA masks for your favorite team at chatsports.com/NBA mask. That's chatsports.com/NBA mask. They've got them for all your favorite teams. They got 3-packs in there. I think that's the better route to go there. Different colors, and that way you can make sure you wash them so they don't end up getting all gross and whatnot. So we'll put the link in the comments and the description, but it's chatsports.com/NBA mask. Now, as promised, some more on the Donovan Mitchell side of it. Obviously, I think the Dwight Howard and the activism is more important, but this also matters to NBA players. Several of the young players want the NBA to pay for insurance to help cover them in the event of injury. Now, they kind of got the awkward ramp-up time with really 3 months off, very unusual for NBA players, especially at this time of the year. There's going to be a shorter offseason next season. All that just increases the injury fears. And there are young players who are going to be coming up on those massive rookie scale extensions that don't want to miss out on a possible $100 million contract. So some of the players who called the NBA with the NBA PA and were on this talk here, Bam Adebayo, De'Aaron Fox, Kyle Kuzma, there's Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum as well. I get where the players are coming from. It's interesting to see them ask the NBA to pay them because these could run, $50,000 or so. This level of the type of insurance these players are talking about. It's all part of a little back and forth here. The NBA so far seems fairly willing, all of course in an effort to get their players back on the court and bring back the sport we all know and love. Now, if you want the best NBA coverage you can find on the internet, hit that big red button. The season, it's getting ramped back up, and so is our NBA coverage. So if you have not already, folks, hit that big red button and subscribe today. The more NBA fans we have as subscribers, all that means is the more NBA videos we'll end up doing. Let's go on now to Derek Favors and his future. There is a report from The Athletic that not just the Pelicans want to bring back Derek Favors, but that the Jazz have insurance in a reunion for Derek Favors. Now, of course, make note, Favors played for the Jazz for much of his NBA career from 2011 to 2019. The Pelicans apparently have some concerns about doing a full-fledged 4-year deal, which makes some sense. They want to develop Jackson Hayes. Now, in terms of scoring this past year, Favors wasn't quite as impactful. The points per game dropped, the field goal percentage dropped, or actually went up, so volume was the main issue there. But the rebounds went up. Favors kind of fit as a big man for a Pelicans team that very much needed them. But maybe they only want to give 2 years so Jackson Hayes can emerge. Maybe Utah, when what is being called mutual interest, wants to give him a longer, more expensive deal. So where should Favors sign? Type J for the Jazz and P for the Pelicans. I don't really know if you can go wrong if you're Favors. Maybe you want to stick around in New Orleans. It's an awesome city to be in. No disrespect towards Utah whatsoever. It's a toss-up for me. So cast your votes. J for the Jazz or P for the Pelicans. Over to John Collins. Look, more big man talk today. He told reporters for Atlanta, I think it was Friday is when it was, that he wants a rookie scale extension from the Hawks this offseason. That's not a surprise, and Collins is very much worthy of a big-time deal. He's coming off his best year ever. He's only 22 years old, and I'd argue he's not just one of the top young bigs, but frankly, probably one of the more underrated players in the entirety of the NBA. I think Collins' name should be mentioned when discussing some of the top young players out there. Obviously, he's not on the same scale as like a Luka, but he put up numbers, man. He put up 21.6 points per game, 10 boards, 40% from deep. I mean, this is what you want out of your third-year player. This is exactly what the Hawks were hoping for. In fact, probably got more than what they were hoping for when they drafted John Collins. So I know Atlanta's still kind of rebuilding. You're still looking for some more pieces around Collins and Trae Young. But if I'm Atlanta, it's a no-brainer. I'm giving Collins the maximum possible extension. Keep that superstar young player happy going forward.